The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will report to the floor and take seats. All members of the House will report to the floor. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Well, good morning. I think today's Friday. How about that? I don't know about y'all, but I'm looking forward to going home. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the lady from the 125th House District, Representative Sheila Nelson. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Today I'm going to introduce to you our chaplain of the day, Dr. Michael Mitchell. But I would also like to introduce his wife and his first lady of the church, Sister Mitchell. And they have with their company two of their administrative assistants. We welcome them to the Capitol. Dr. Mitchell is the founder and senior pastor of Restoration Ministries International Christian Fellowship in Augusta, Georgia, a Christ-centered, diverse, family-oriented ministry devoted to restoring lives in every area of life, building a people of destiny, purpose, power, prayer, and praise. His focus is to help people discover their destiny in Christ and fulfill their purpose with faith and grace. He is assisted by a team of ministers with multiple ministry departments and a school of ministry designed to help equip God's people to fulfill their purpose and destinies and be actively involved in the kingdom of God. He is a loving and devoted husband to his wife of 32 years, Dr. Bernita, and the father of 4 adult children. Dr. Mitchell teaches viewers on the Restoring Your World television broadcast, which can be seen on numerous local and national television stations and the internet. Dr. Mitchell.
Good morning to the Honorable Speaker of the House, David Rosson, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. To all the distinguished representatives, and of course to Representative Sheila Nelson, thank you so much for the invitation to be here this morning. Let us pray so we can briefly encourage you this morning. Father, we pray that you will anoint my lips to speak words of encouragement, exhortation, and comfort to the leaders in this assembly today, words that would uplift, convict, and motivate them to guide our state with great passion and godly support during these challenging times, to press us forward so that we may flourish and enjoy life, infuse their minds and their hearts with wisdom, witty ideas, and profound knowledge, and give them counsel to be difference makers that create, propose, generate bills that propel Georgia to its highest potential. You already know what you're going to do, Lord, so we thank you that everything's done, everything's said would be impactful, it would be blessing, and we ask it in Jesus' name, amen. I want to briefly talk to you this morning about follow forward. I believe one of the things God would have this great state do, like have the mind of Christ to go forward in life. I recall of Joshua as Israel was in a stalemate position. It was already on the move, but there was much more for them. So he sent the leaders, people just like yourself, the leaders of the people. Said, go tell the people to get ready, prepare yourself, for the Lord is about to move us forward. And then later on he told them to make sure you don't linger, to be slack to do what he's telling you to do. And so when we think about going forward, I'm reminded of Jesus giving a parable about a mustard seed. He said, look at the mustard seed. It's so small, so tiny, and yet once it is planted, it groweth. And when it groweth, it becomes a large tree that the birds can rest their nests upon it. The word groweth there means to ascend from a lower place to a higher place. So he's talking about if you take what you got and if you use it, you can go forward. And that's what God wants for all of us. And I think that's what we all want for Georgia, to go forward from where we are. Too many Georgians are already stagnated in life. Stagnation is something that you can get comfortable with, but it's not the place that you want to stay. I think we go forward today, and most people want to go forward. They just don't know how to go forward. So when we consider today, I want to talk to you about 5 things that can help us go forward. And I take this from Paul teaching, and he write a letter to the people of Philippians. And he tells them, I haven't yet done everything God has told me to do. I haven't apprehended it all. But this one thing that I do, forgetting those things which are behind me and pressing to those things which are before me. So when we go forward, one of the things we need first is we got to believe that it's possible. Possibility that we can actually take our state from where it is, which is a great place. How many of you believe today Georgia is a great state? Georgia is a great state. But I'm sitting here today and I really believe God, if you can imagine God looking down on Georgia, seeing where Georgia is now, but he's also looking at Georgia for the Georgia that he sees that it can completely come to be. And that's what I want to push you toward today is we are happy for where we've come from. We are happy with where we are, but there's so much more that we can do. And so when we go forward, first we believe it's possible for us. So when we believe it's possible, we've got to recognize it takes force. You know, as a military officer, one of the things we learned early on, it takes 6 times more force to take a place than it does to hold a place. So when we think about going forward, we're going to have to use more force, more strength, more resources, and we're going to have to work harder than we would to hold our position. You can hold a position if you want, but that won't take you where you want to go. I want to encourage each one here today to work like this is your last opportunity to do it. To hope to be here forever, but work like you got your last chance right now. Secondly, when we think about going forward, is that after we believe it's possible, we want to believe that we can have forward thinking. The Bible talks a lot about renewing the mind and thinking at a different level. And as we go to a new place, as a man thinketh, so is that man. So we got to think on new levels, think on new places, think how we can go forward in our progression. Thirdly, we got to think about forward pursuits. Paul said, I want to apprehend that for which Christ has apprehended me. That word there means to take hold of. It means to arrest. When we send our officers to someone to arrest them, they go out and say, I apprehend them. And that's what God is talking to you, the representatives of Georgia. That's what you are here for. The people, to speak to you, I'm talking to all of Georgia. And so you represent them. But I'm telling you to take hold of what God has sent you here to take hold of. Take hold of what those who push you forward to take hold of it. And as you do, we're going to take Georgia to a greater place than we are right now. That word means to attain, to actively take, to accept it, to go forward. The fourth thing we want is forward focus. Paul said, I'm not going to look back, forgetting those things which are behind me. I'm not going to forget them to the point that it's not remembered that it had happened, but I'm not going to let that be the final standard that I set. So we're going to press forward to the mark, to the place. When you think about your district, where do you want to go? When you think about your plans, where do you want them to take you? When you think about Georgia, as far as you're concerned, where are you going to go? I would encourage you to think about the purpose, the destiny, and the assignment for which you've been called. And then finally, forward momentum. He said, I press towards the mark. So we have to grab hold of the momentum that we already got. When I think about the mind of Christ, I ask God, what do you have for Georgia? And what he implied to my heart is that Georgia is one of his favorite places. And I'm not saying that just to be saying that. This is the heart of God for you. God had so much for Georgia. And he wants me to tell you, the leaders of Georgia, to come to him, to ask of him what it is he would have you to do. And if everyone in this room would do what they believe he wants them to do, and then collectively do those things together, there's nothing that can stop us from being all that we can be. When I was in the military, that was one of our things, was be all that you can be. And that's what I want to leave you with you today. Be all that you can be. You are a great body. This is a great state. We're going to do some incredible things because we're going to go forward. Look at somebody and say, go forward. You're in assembly now, and it's time to go forward. We're going to mark this date and think about this time next year. And I believe Georgia would have gone forward from where we are and continue to go forward. So in conclusion, we want to start with the end in mind, set our purpose, our goals for this body with a proper perspective of the situation we face, counting the cost of what the future holds, and we can pursue a sound and successful future as we partner together in this assembly and with the leaders of this great state. I thank you for this time with you this morning, but I bless you with the blessing of God, and I want to propel you with the strength of God to go in the name of our Lord and Savior, go with the authority that has been granted to you, and go and take Georgia forward. Thank you. Let us pray. Father, I thank you today for the distinguished body of leaders appointed to legislate and guide this great state with wisdom, insight, poise, and great concern for the citizens of our state, as well as the vast resources you have provided for the great state of Georgia. May you anoint them with an abundance of grace and keen insight to maneuver this state through these times, through trials, through tribulations, from the rough waters of economic challenges to the smooth waters of peace and prosperity. May you grant them access to the reservoirs of secret insight so they will know what needs to be done and what courses of action need to be taken to navigate our state to great glories we are destined to achieve. We ask for your divine intervention into the affairs of Georgia so that we might be guided by your wisdom to do great exploit and be a model state of blessing, favors, prosperity, and peace. Provide protection for all of our leaders and their families, and grant your favor and blessing to all the citizens of Georgia. Let Georgia bask in the radiance of the sun of the joy of the Lord and enjoy the cool breeze of grace throughout this state. By the authority vested in me, I bless them and I bless this body in the name of Jesus. God bless America and God bless the great state of Georgia in Jesus' name. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was very encouraging. Thank you so much. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits have read the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on the 59th, moves the following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Report of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 3 by Representative Gertler of the 8th, Cook of the 18th, Caldwell the 20th, Moore of the 1st, Dunhoo of the 30th. A bill being entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 13 and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating the excise tax on rooms.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 177 by Representative Caldwell the 20th. A bill being entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 3 of Title 9 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating the limitations of actions.
Judiciary.
House Bill 178 by Representative Hogan of the 179th, Hawkins of the 27th, Stevens of the 164th, Dempsey of the 13th, Blackman of the 146th, and others. Bill being entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 37 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to examination and treatment for mental illness.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 179 by Representative Moore the 1st, Pullen of the 131st, Dunhoo of the 30th, and Tarvin of the 2nd. Bill being entitled Act to amend Code Section 2014-33, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to indicators of quality of learning.
Education.
House Bill 80 by Representative Caldwell of the 20th, Welch of the 110th, Blackman of the 146th, Kelly of the 16th, Werkheiser of the 157th, and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend various titles of the Official Code of Georgia annotated so as to reveal provisions.
Code Revision.
House Bill 181 by Representative Mitchell, the 88th bill being entitled an act to amend Article 31 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Charter Schools Act of 1998.
Education.
House Bill 182 by Representative Harrell of the 106th, Williamson of the 115th, Stevens of the 164th, and Knight of the 130th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sales and use tax.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 183 by Representative Harrell, the 106th night of the 130th, Williamson, the 115th, Stevens, the 164th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to ad valorem tax of property.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 184 by Representative Harrell of the 106th, Powell of the 171st, England of the 116th, and Williamson of the 115th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to local government.
Economic Development and Tourism.
House Bill 185 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and Frazier of the 126th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to financial institutions.
Banks and Banking.
House Bill 186 by Representative Stevens, the 164th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Petrie of the 166th, Hitchens of the 161st, Stevens the 165th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to county and municipal hospital authorities.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 187 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, Cooper of the 43rd, Newton of the 123rd, Jones of the 53rd, and Hatchett of the 150th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Department of Community Health.
The Health and Human Services.
House Bill 188 by Representative Shannon of the 84th, Cannon of the 58th, Clark of the 108th, Stevenson of the 90th, Wen of the 89th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to health.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 189 by Representative Smith, the 133rd, Harrell of the 106th, Tanner of the 9th, Corbett of the 174th, Benton of the 139th. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 80, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sales and use taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 190 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Jones of the 167th, Hill of the 3rd, Williams of the 168th, Hughley of the 136th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 6 of Chapter 8 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to employees engaged in the operation of trains.
Transportation.
House Bill 181 by Representative Kendrick of the 93rd, Stover of the 71st, Stovall of the 74th, and Jones of the 91st. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 192 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, Washburn of the 141st, Ridley of the 6th, and Bonner of the 72nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 39A of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to real estate appraisers.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 193 by Representative Donahue of the 30th, Smyrie the 135th, Hitchens the 161st, Rutledge the 109th, Hawkins the 27th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to provisions applicable to the Department of Banking and Finance.
Banks and Banking.
House Bill 194 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Powell of the 171st, and Taylor of the 173rd. Bill being titled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Meigs in Thomas County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 195 by Representative Benton of the 31st. A bill being titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 7 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to retirement.
Retirement.
House Bill 196 by Representative Benton of the 31st. A bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 1 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to retirement.
Retirement.
House Bill 197 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, Houston of the 170th, Gardner of the 57th, England of the 116th, and Powell of the 171st. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 12 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Office of Planning and Budget.
Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight.
House Bill 198 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, England of the 116th, Powell of the 171st, Bazemore of the 63rd, Houston of the 170th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to health.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 199 by Representative Wilkerson of the 38th. A bill being titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate computation and exemptions from state income tax.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 200 by Representative Hogan of the 179th, Stevens of the 164th, Hawkins of the 27th, Donahue of the 30th, Hill of the 3rd, and others. Bill being titled and acted in Article 3 of Chapter 13 of Title 48 of Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to excise tax on rooms.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 201 by Representative Hogan of the 179th, Petrie of the 166th, Williams of the 148th, Mathiak of the 73rd, Williams of the 168th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 52 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to waters of the state.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 202 by Representative Petrie of the 166th, Hitchens of the 161st, Clark of the 147th, Powell of the 32nd, Williams of the 115th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 42 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to penal institutions.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 203 by Representative Bennett of the 94th, Smyrie 135th, Belton of the 112th, Hitchens of the 161st, Frazier 126th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from state income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 204 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th, Henson of the 86th, Couch of the 50th, Cooper of the 43rd, Walensky the 79th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sales and use taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 205 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to driver's licenses.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 206 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 31 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Charter School Act of 1998.
Education.
House Bill 207 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding the uniform rules of the road.
Motor Vehicles.
House Resolution 164 by Representative Powell, 171st, Williamson of the 115th, Welch of the 110th, Stevens of the 164th, Trammell of the 132nd, and others. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for the dedication of revenues.
Ways and Means.
Senate Bill 7 by Senator Jones, the 10th, Butler of the 55th, Parent of the 42nd, Anderson of the 43rd, Davenport of the 44th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend an act revising the superseding, consolidating laws relating to the governing authority of DeKalb County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Senate Bill 25 by Representative Heath of the 31st. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 46-163 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the duty of a driver.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
Senate Bill 53 by Senator Jones of the 10th, Butler of the 55th, Anderson of the 43rd, Harrell of the 40th, Parent of the 42nd, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to create and establish in DeKalb County, Georgia, districts.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 19 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Thomas of the 56th, Shannon of the 84th, Trammell of the 132nd, Cannon of the 58th, and others. A bill to provide comprehensive state civil rights law protecting individuals from discrimination in housing, public accommodations, and employment. House Bill 138 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. Bill relating to ad valorem taxation of property. House Bill 139 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th, and Rutledge of the 109th. A bill relating to tax sales. House Bill 140 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harold of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th. Bill relating to tax sales. House Bill 141 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to excise tax on rooms, lodging, and accommodations. House Bill 142 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th, and Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to excise tax on rooms, lodging, and accommodations. House Bill 143 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to motor fuel and road taxes. House Bill 144 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to motor fuel and road taxes. House Bill 145 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th, Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to taxes on tobacco products. House Bill 146 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Harold of the 106th. A bill relating to taxes on tobacco products. House Bill 147 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harold of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to general provisions regarding revenue and taxation. House Bill 148 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harrell of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. Bill relating to general provisions regarding revenue and taxation. House Bill 149 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harrell of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th. Bill relating to taxation of intangibles. House Bill 150 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Harrell of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to taxation of intangibles. House Bill 151 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, Harrell of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 152 by Representative Williams of the 115th, Harrell of the 106th, Rutledge of the 109th, and Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 153 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Harrell of the 106th, Williamson of the 115th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to sales and use taxes. House Bill 154 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Harrell of the 106th, Williamson of the 115th, and Carson of the 46th. A bill relating to sales and use taxes. House Bill 155 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Harrell of the 106th, Carson of the 46th, Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to alternative ad valorem tax on motor vehicles. House Bill 156 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Harrell of the 106th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to alternative to ad valorem tax on motor vehicles. House Bill 157 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Harrell of the 106th, Carson of the 46th, and Martin of the 49th. A bill relating to ad valorem tax on motor property. House Bill 158 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd, Cooper of the 43rd, Schofield of the 60th, Newton of the 123rd, Fry of the 118th. A bill relating to medical assistance. House Bill 159 by Representative Pullen of the 131st. A bill to amend, consolidate, and supersede several acts of the General Assembly of the State of Georgia pertaining to the city of Molina and the county of Pike. House Bill 160 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, Cooper of the 43rd, Newton of the 123rd, Jones of the 53rd, and Hatchett of the 150th. A bill relating to the Department of Community Health. House Bill 161 by Representative Benton of the 31st and Gaines of the 117th. A bill to amend an act to create a Board of Elections and Registration for Jackson County. House Bill 162 by Representative Benton of the 31st. A bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from City of Commerce Independent School District ad valorem taxes. House Bill 163 by Representative Benton of the 31st, a bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from City of Jefferson Independent School District ad valorem taxes. House Bill 164 by Representative Benton of the 31st and Gaines of the 117th, a bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from Jackson County School District ad valorem taxes. House Bill 165 by Representative Trammell of the 132nd, Fry of the 118th, Walensky of the 79th, Robichaud of the 48th, Hutchinson of the 107th, and others. Bills relating to weapons carry license, gun safety information, temporary renewal permit, mandamus, and verification of license. House Bill 166 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd, Cooper of the 43rd, Reinders of the 152nd, Dempsey of the 13th, Hatchett of the 150th, a bill relating to physicians, assistants, and others. House Bill 167 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd, Smith of the 134th, Williams of the 148th, Green of the 151st, and Mathiak of the 73rd, a bill relating to authority of agent to act as adjuster, non-resident adjusters, and reciprocal agreements. House Bill 168 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd, Parrish of the 158th, Newton of the 123rd, Hawkins of the 27th, Corbett of the 174th, and others. A bill relating to exemptions from sales and use taxes. House Bill 169 by Representative Hughley of the 136th, Jackson of the 128th, Smyre of the 135th, Clanton of the 75th, Dickerson of the 113th, and others. A bill relating to competencies and core curriculum relative to quality basic education. House Bill 170 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd, Jaspers of the 11th, Earhart of the 36th, Pruitt of the 149th, Houston of the 170th, and others. A bill relating to tax credits for qualified education donations. House Bill 171 by Representative Barr of the 103rd, Powell of the 32nd, Pruitt of the 149th, Cook of the 18th, and Hitchens of the 161st. A bill relating to horns, exhaust systems, mirrors, windshields, tires, safety belts, and energy absorption systems on motor vehicles. House Bill 172 by Representative Hughley of the 136th, Stevens of the 165th, Beverly of the 143rd, Stevenson of the 90th, Gordon of the 163rd, and others. Bill relating to Claims Advisory Board and review of individual criminal history information, definitions, privacy considerations, and inspections. House Bill 173 by Representative Wilkerson of the 38th, Smith of the 41st, Alexander of the 66th, Bodie of the 62nd, Kendrick of the 93rd. Bill relating to unlawful or unfair deceptive practices in consumer transactions. House Bill 174 by Representative Wilkerson of the 38th, Alexander of the 66th, Smith of the 41st, Bodie of the 62nd, Kendrick of the 93rd. Bill relating to registration and licensing of motor vehicles. House Bill 175 by Representative Shannon of the 84th, Jackson of the 64th, Scott of the 76th, Oliver of the 82nd, Newlowitz of the 42nd, and others. Bill relating to the state flag, seal, and other symbols. House Bill 176 by Representative Shannon of the 84th, Bruce of the 61st, Wynn of the 89th, McLeod of the 105th, Dreyer of the 59th. A bill relating to primaries and elections. House Resolution 137 by Representative Metz of the 55th, Smyre of the 135th, Howard of the 124th, Bennett of the 94th, Stevens of the 164th, and others. Resolution creating the House Study Committee on the History of Historically Black Colleges and Universities. House Resolution 138 by Representative Shannon of the 84th, Wynn of the 89th, Bruce of the 61st, Hughley of the 136th, Stevenson of the 90th, and others. Resolution urging the federal government to oversee election changes in Georgia under the Voting Rights Acts of 1965. Senate Bill 5 by Senator Anderson of the 24th, a bill to repeal an act creating the Lincoln County Recreation Authority, through second readers.
Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Representative David Clark on the 98th District, Chairman of the Committee on Interstate Cooperation, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Interstate Cooperation has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the same following recommendations. House Bill 26, do pass by substitute. House Bill 39, do pass. House Resolution 51, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative David Clark in the 98th District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District, Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had under consideration the following bills of the House. It has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 95, do pass. House Bill 96, do pass. House Bill 97, do pass. House Bill 108, do pass. House Bill 124, do pass. House Bill 125, do pass. House Bill 127, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District, Chairman. Representative Barry Fleming of the 121st District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It has instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 92, do pass. House Bill 91, do pass. House Bill 25, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Barry Fleming of the 121st District, Chairman. That completes the reports of standing committees.
We are going on now to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Is there objection? Chair hears none. It is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 95 by Representative Parrish, the 158th, Jenkins County. House Bill 96 by Representative Parrish, the 158th, Candler County. House Bill 97 by Representative Parrish of the 158th, City of Swainsboro. House Bill 108 by Representative Bernal of the 77th, Clayton County. House Bill 124 by Representative Nix of the 69th, Town of Centrahatchee. House Bill 125 by Representative Nix of the 69th, City of Bowdoin. House Bill 127 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Eccles County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Collins rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
Is that House Bill 125 from Representative Nix? Is that the same as the city of Bowden, as we call it out there in Carroll County?
That's what the caption says.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure that was the city of Bowden.
Looks like it abolishes the city of Bowden, but if that matters. Just joking. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 164. The nays are 0. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. House will continue to be in order. We are going on to morning orders, and the chair is going to ask that members speaking on morning orders confine your remarks to not more than 2 minutes each, because we have a fairly important measure on the calendar today, and I know everybody's anxious to take that up. Chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My esteemed colleagues, I come before you this morning to recognize my page for the day. Cutler Grayson Shiver. Cutler, if you please stand. Cutler is a junior at Oconee County High School. He's made an impact on our community far beyond many of his peers. Cutler is an Eagle Scout, but not just any Eagle Scout. In Scouting's 110-year history, fewer than 400 Scouts have achieved and earned all 137 of Scouting's merit badges. Along with that impressive accomplishment, he was awarded the William T. Hornaday Conservation Award, the oldest conservation award given in the United States. Beyond Scouting, Cutler is equally impressive. He placed first in the region for business communications and first in the state for business concepts from future business leaders of America. He achieved magna cum laude in the National Latin Examination, and he most recently has been invited to speak with Governor Brian Kemp on Scout Day, February 27th, representing all of Georgia's Scouts. He is joined today by his parents, Barry and Lindsay Shiver. Please join me in recognizing my page for the day, Cutler Shiver. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representatives Stovall and Schofield for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Today, Representative Schofield and I welcome senior adults from District 74 in Clayton County and District 60 in Southeast Atlanta to the state capitol. And we also have one of the monks from the Cambodian temple in Lithonia. They are here to show their support to a better education for children in their communities. These 100 seniors represent a portion of the villages that are needed to raise our children. They have a wealth of knowledge to share with youth. Also this morning I have with me my dad, Levitt Stovall, who is among the village of seniors today. He is my #1 advisor and taught his daughters to be community focused. And I'd like to also give a special thanks to the Atlanta Senior Citizen Coalition, spearheaded by Sharon Daniel and Dietrich Poindexter, and for the Encore Resource Center. Members, will you please help us to welcome Clayton and Atlanta senior citizens who are here, and they have on their natural color t-shirts with blueprint that says, I am a senior, Clayton senior who cares. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Cash for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Today is Mental Health Day at the Capitol, and I'm proud and honored to recognize Dr. Pierluigi Mancini for his impactful work, outstanding achievements, and commitment to mental health treatment. Dr. Mancini is among us, so please rise, we may recognize you. Dr. Mancini was born in Colombia and came to the United States as a student. As a young man in college, he struggled with addiction. He experienced firsthand the pain and suffering addiction causes not only for himself, but also for his family. Luckily, he found the tremendous personal strength, support, and treatment to overcome his disease. And yes, addiction is a disease, but not everyone has the same chance. From his own experience, Dr. Mancini knew that any meaningful mental health treatment could only occur within the cultural background of the patient and in the patient's native language. But no such service was available for the large Latino immigrant population living in Georgia in the 1990s. And that is how his journey as a lifelong advocate for improving mental health services for the Latino immigrant community began. In 1999, he founded CEDPA, Georgia's only Latino clinic for mental health addiction, which provided affordable, cultural appropriate mental health and substance abuse services. His work received national and international recognition for bringing the issue of immigrant mental health, its cultural appropriate prevention and intervention to the attention of the professional mental health community. And his colleagues say about him that he is a force of nature. I want to thank Dr. Mancini for leading an exemplary life of service for successful mental health treatment, fighting the stigma associated with addiction and mental illness, and providing a tremendous service for our community and the many immigrants among us. Let's give a heartfelt thank you and applause to Dr. Mancini for his accomplishments. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes for a morning order Chairman Houston and Chairman Tankersley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every year, our friends at Heartbound Ministries host their annual art show, and you're going to want to listen to this. It's called Art from the Inside. This showcase is a great opportunity for all of us to witness some of the truly remarkable and often hidden talents of Georgia's inmates. The best thing about this is that the proceeds from the sale goes towards the Little Readers program, which allows children of incarcerated parents to see and hear their parents reading to them on video. This fund also places children's books in prison visitation rooms throughout our great state. This showcase is going to take place this coming Monday, February the 11th, through Thursday, February the 14th, from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. in the atrium of the Sloppy Floyd building. And I'm going to look forward to seeing all of you there. Don't miss the session, but it's worth going. It's just incredible pieces of art purses made out of chewing gum wrappers. I mean, we don't spend a lot of money on supplies in the prison system, but you're going to be amazed at what they take, just scraps, and create some of the most beautiful things you've seen. I know Representative Hogan went over last year and he purchased a replica of the Glenn County Courthouse with such unbelievable detail and so many other things, but I want to adhere to our time limit, so I'll try to have a reminder on your desk Monday, but keep that in mind. You'll be glad that you went. Thank you.
And I'd like to say Representative Tanksley brought a beautiful picture at an auction that we all attended, and you're welcome to go by her office and look at the picture that they did. Just go visit her, okay?
Chair recognizes Representative Derek Jackson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of this august body, for my Black History moment, I come to you with a heavy heart. Initially, I was going to talk to you about the exhibit that's in the South Wing, but last night, a great baseball player died, Frank Robinson, the first African-American manager in Major League Baseball, and the only player to win the MVP in both leagues, died at the age of 83. See, as a sports enthusiast and as a baseball enthusiast, I followed his career. He was like a role model because he was an outfielder and I was an outfielder. He was also a first baseman. Robinson was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1982 in the first year of his eligibility. As a fearsome hitter, Robinson ranks 10th on the career home run list with 586. He won the Triple Crown with the Orioles in 1966, the year I was born, and became the first Black manager in the Major League Baseball history in 1975 with the Cleveland Indians. See, Frank Robinson managed until 2006 when he finished his career with the Washington Nationals. Frank Robinson was also awarded the Medal of Freedom in 2005 by President George W. Bush. The most moving thing to me, Frank stated, he said, being the sport's first Black manager was nothing compared to what Jackie Robinson did or what he went through. But what I accomplished was important too, because I was the first, and that meant the door was open. But how long the door would stay open depended on basically the way I conducted myself and the success that I have. A moment of silence for Frank Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Abel Mabel Thomas for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members of this august body. On your desk today, you have this flyer that talks about a exhibit of famous African American Georgians, and one of them has my name on it, but also one of them has Derek Jackson on it as well. And so what we would like to do is to invite you downstairs to the South Wing. On the second floor, there's an exhibit that has some famous African American Georgians, and I just want to mention a couple of them. It has Henry Flipper, who was the first African American to attend and graduate from the West Point. You have the famous Thomas Dorsey. Also, you have Georgia Douglas Johnson, who ended up being a Harlem Renaissance poet. And also you have a fellow colleague State Senator Leroy Johnson, who was the first African-American senator in the state of Georgia. So I would like to ask you to, if you know, even as we leaving out, that you just go by the second floor, because I don't think they would be there longer than about 11:30 or maybe quarter to 12. But it would be good for you to see it, and we appreciate the opportunity to have the exhibit in the rotunda area on the south wing. Also, I would like to take a quick Black History moment and talk about Reverend James Orange. Reverend James Orange was a civil rights leader and a labor leader and a lieutenant of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And if you ever see the picture of his funeral, he's the big guy. He's from out of Alabama. He's the big guy that's pulling the mules forward with the wagon. He's on the side of the wagon. But he was the gentleman that started me in politics, and he is what they call in the movement leader of the ground crew. That means he was the guy that went into towns, and him and Jose Williams, they would pave the way by going to different places to let people know that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was coming. And so I do want to salute him as my mentor. He passed away some years ago, and he also exposed me to politics in terms of a group of people called the Blue Crew. They helped elect Andrew Young to mayor of the city of Atlanta. And another colleague who's in his chamber with us now is Representative Dewey McClain, who knows Reverend James Orange, and also we call him leader. We call Reverend James Orange leader. And Representative Dewey McClain also was a member of that group called the Blue Crew that helped elect Andrew Young to mayor of the city of Atlanta. Thank you for this moment, and I yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a special guest with us in the House today, Ms. Brandy Risha. If you would stand to be recognized. Her husband is part of the 48th Brigade that has been deployed to Afghanistan, and her daughter and his daughter is a page for Representative Matt Hatchett and myself today, and we just want to recognize her and thank her for her husband's service to our country. If everyone would give her a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Dubnik for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm joined here today by my fellow Hall County delegates, and ladies and gentlemen of the House, it is a very somber day for us to stand before you and bring unfortunate news of a lifelong friend of mine and businessman, philanthropist in our community who unfortunately was shot and killed last night in the parking lot of a CVS while his wife went inside to get a prescription. He was at dinner and was on the way home, and there are no answers, there are no words. We grieve with his family and ask that you would just join us in a moment of silence in remembrance of our friend Jack Huff. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
House will continue to be at order. House will be at order. We are about to recognize some very distinguished Georgians. Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 123.
House Resolution 123 by Representative Tanner of the 9th, a resolution congratulating and commending the State YMCA of Georgia's Youth Assembly on its 75th anniversary and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Chairman Kevin Tanner for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It brings me great pleasure today to stand before you to recognize a fine group of young men and women from our state. For 75 years now, the YMCA has had the Youth Assembly. For those of you who are new members to our General Assembly, I would encourage you, when you get the call and they ask you to participate in this program, I encourage you to do so. This is training fine young men and women to be the future leaders in our state. I have a couple of important people with me today. These two young ladies served as the speakers of the House during this last Youth Assembly. And we have Samantha Aub and Kimmy Powell. Kimmy's from Forsyth County, Forsyth Central, and Samantha's from Jefferson. So if you would, give them a nice round of applause for being here with us. If you're not familiar with the Youth Assembly comes here to the Capitol every year, and they elect their own leadership, both in the House, the Senate, the Governor's office, the Supreme Court, and they carry out the legislative process exactly like we carry out that process. My daughter, one of my daughters, who's a junior in high school, has participated in this program for several years. It's very successful. It encourages them to participate in our process. So we want to thank them for all they do and recognize them on 75 wonderful years. And at this time, I want to call on the Speaker of the House for the Youth Assembly this year, Samantha, to give you a few words. Madam Speaker.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Ayub, and I had the pleasure to serve as one of the Speakers of the House for the 74th Georgia Youth Assembly program. Last November, while many of you were sitting in these very seats, approving much-needed disaster relief for the hurricane victims in South Georgia, we were holding our 74th Youth Assembly programs just a few blocks away. At our assemblies, nearly 1,000 students from across the state were locked in passionate debate and discussion on topics and issues our state faces. Through these discussions, we learned from one another. Today, I would like to thank you for the honor and privilege to have access to this wonderful Capitol building. There's no better place to learn about how Georgia's government works than where it actually takes place. Our groups are eager and look forward to getting back into these chambers this November. Many of you financially support our program through the Sponsor Your Seat campaign. I can speak on behalf of all of us as students when I tell you thank you. Youth Assembly educates and equips us to contribute to this great state in the world around us. You'll have an opportunity to once again make this investment in the coming days. As a matter of fact, I believe there's a packet on your desk with more information. This year at Youth Assembly, many ideas were introduced and debated, including increasing rural broadband, decreasing crab pot bycatching, and modifying the Georgia income tax rate in regards to these deductibles. This year marked the 74th Youth Assembly, and throughout the years, tens of thousands of Georgians, some former Youth Georgia governors, sitting U.S. senators, college and university presidents, and several members of this very body were able to participate in the Youth Assembly experience. In fact, several members of this body have children currently participating or have had children participate in the past. Bills created at Youth Assembly or inspired as a result of Youth Assembly have had a profound impact on Georgia and the nation at large, ranging from schools granting maternity leave to adoptive parents, or most recently the issue of upskirting. Your investment and support in the continuing work of the state YMCA of Georgia is vital to the success of both Georgia and our nation as we seek to inspire and instill a passion for service and intelligent conversation in Georgia's teens. Georgia has a great deal to be proud of. We are a state known for a great business environment, among many other accolades. Georgia is the envy of many, and that is due to the thoughtful decisions that many of you make during these sessions to make Georgia a better state for its citizens and the nation as a whole. I can also assure you that in the generations to come, there are leaders coming out of these Youth Assembly programs who are passionate, informed, and dedicated to working towards keeping Georgia a great state to live in, do business in, and travel to. God bless you. God bless the great state of Georgia, and God bless the United States of America.
give up. Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 128.
House Resolution 128 by Representative Carter, the 92nd, Holcomb of the 81st, Anulowitz of the 42nd, Harrell of the 106th, Wilson of the 80th, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending John Berry, and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Carter to present the invite resolution.
Good morning, and thank you, Speaker Ralston. Good morning, colleagues. I am excited today to introduce to some and to present to others Mr. John Berry, who is the Chief Executive Officer of St. Vincent de Paul, Georgia. St. Vincent de Paul started in 1833 in Paris, but the Georgia Council was initiated in 1914. Some of you may have heard over the holiday, you may have heard about Clark's Kids, Christmas Kids. Over 10,000 kids were, toys were purchased for them that were in foster care. What you may not know is that St. Vincent de Paul is the arm behind that. And then most recently, with the furloughed federal workers, through a generous grant from Georgia Power, we were able to assist many of the federal employees by paying their utility bills. So I would like to take this time to introduce our CEO, Mr. John Berry, our board chair, Mr. Mark Battalion, his wife, Mrs. Battalion. We have Ms. Denise Fisher, who is over our, Voice for the Poor, and Amanda, the director of our Vincentian service. If you would just give us a couple minutes, we're going to show you a quick video, and then we're going to let Mr. John Berry speak with you.
St. Vincent de Paul is an incredible organization. It's an incredible opportunity to serve people in need throughout our state, throughout our country. We're different than many other organizations because our whole existence is focused around human-to-human contact, person-to-person. People don't come to St. Vincent de Paul and come to a counter and a window and fill out a form and hand it through the window and then get a check or something back or a box of food. They sit with a human being who asks them, what is it that is making your life difficult right now and how can we help? That's what our volunteers do. You know, we have over 5,000 across the state of Georgia delivering the services that we deliver with a staff of 33 backing them up. 150,000 people we help on average in a year. Those volunteers, they are what we are. That's what St. Vincent de Paul is all about.
Me and my son, we had to basically live in a shelter for about 2 or 3 months. My sister decided that we could come stay with her and we could start over again, so I had to hit the reset button. St. Vincent de Paul helped me and my son tremendously in our life by giving that $800 that they gave us to get that apartment. Today I'm a licensed realtor. Me and my son are doing great. He's doing better in school. Because of that blessing from St. Vincent de Paul, I'm able to work with my team, and my team and I, we give back $250 to St. Vincent de Paul each closing that we get. That's over a certain amount of dollars. So it's just a blessing on top of a blessing.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for honoring us and allowing me to say a few words to you. As Doreen mentioned, we have operated in the state of Georgia actually since 1903, and for the last 116 years, from Blairsville to Brunswick and from Lake Hartwell to LaGrange, we've supported the needs of our fellow Georgians, not only taking them to stability, but helping them get onto the road to self-sufficiency. Our 5,000 plus volunteers, inspired by their gospel values, go out and visit with people in their homes and help us help them. Our main goals are to prevent homelessness, fight hunger, and help change lives for the better. So thank you for the honor today, and we look forward to your continued support.
Speaker.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 148.
House Resolution 148 by Representative Martin of the 49th and Jones of the 47th. A resolution commending the Milton Eagles football team for winning the 2018 GHSA 7A State Football Championship.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Higher Education Committee, Chairman Martin, for an invite resolution.
Sorry if I have them put that up on the screen, or would you rather not?
Yeah, have you
Okay.
not made arrangements yet?
I have, yeah, I have.
Okay.
I
yeah,
just want to make
yeah.
it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the members of the House. I want to try to be brief. I know it's late in the hour here, but we have before us today Speaker Pro Tem Jones and I the great honor of welcoming the Milton Eagles, the 2018 version of the Milton Eagles. What I have put up on your screen is the 1952. It's the third iteration of the Milton Eagles. The program started in 1950-51, but 69 years, I believe this is the 69th year that we've been playing football up at North Fulton at Milton, and these folks did a great job with that. Mr. Clerk, I don't know if you, did we sound the resolution, or are we doing that now, or not? Just the caption of the resolution, commending the Eagles for winning the GHSA 2018 7A football championship. And at this time, I would like you to join me as I welcome the team that's up in the gallery. Gentlemen, if y'all would stand up, and also I would invite Coach Clack if he would like to say a few words.
That's right. I think I agree. I think we can line up and play another one, guys. What you think? Glad to be here. You know, if I told you I expected to be here at the beginning of the season, I'd probably be lying. And you know, 1,000 other people, as we were 1,000 to 1 shots to be here, we'd have been in good company. But what these guys accomplished and what this community accomplished is truly remarkable and special, and it really shows you the power of our great sport, a sport that's under attack in a lot of ways, and with a very loud minority attacking what it stands for and its safety and things of that nature. But I can promise you that these guys achieved something really great and really special through great teamwork, a competitive toughness and grit, and a relentless effort in their pursuit of their goals. A couple of guys I'd like to recognize that helped us make this possible here today. First and foremost, my quarterback, Jordan Yates. He recently signed to go play at Georgia Tech. Co-team captain and our inside linebacker, Jordan Davis, who also has signed to play football at West Georgia. Keeping our talent in state. And then I would definitely be remiss if I didn't introduce our principal and leader, Mr. Brian Jones, and our athletic director, who these guys move mountains for our program, and Gary Silvestri. And their support and their leadership has been instrumental. Thank y'all.
Chair recognizes Representative Shelley Hutchinson to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Good morning. How are you? Good.
So how do I do this?
Start talking.
Okay. Good morning, colleagues. I'm here to introduce our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Latifah Watford. She serves as the Chief Behavioral Health at Kaiser Permanente in Georgia. As a general child and adolescent and forensic psychiatrist, she works diligently to ensure her patients receive the care they need in a respectful, caring, and clinically competent manner. She believes in the importance of treating the entire person, body, mind, and spirit, and encourages all her patients to be active in their self-care, taking time to appreciate and celebrate the small things and laugh. Dr. Watford received her medical degree from the Morehouse School of Medicine and completed residency training fellowships in pediatrics and general psychiatry, as well as a fellowship in child and adolescent at Indiana University. She also completed a forensic psychiatry fellowship at Emory University, and she joined Kaiser Permanente in 2012. Let's please welcome Dr. Latifah Watford as Doctor of the Day.
Good morning. First, let me say thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the intro, Ms. Hutchinson. As stated, I am Latifah Watford. I am a child, adolescent, forensics, and general psychiatrist. I'm also trained as a pediatrician. I'm honored to be here today as a representative of MAG and Kaiser Permanente physicians to serve a day of service to those who serve us all here in the state of Georgia. As a psychiatrist, I often consider the stress under which my patients who present to me are under, and I want to extend to you the understanding of the stressful work that you do every day in session as you hold the well-being of our many residents in the state of Georgia in your hands. And I want to commend you on the sacrifices and the service you provide to each and every member of our state. And I want to encourage you to be encouraged and be hopeful and be proud of the work you do and the benefits that you all encourage or allow for us residents here in the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Let's get a picture.
All right.
House will come to order. House will be at order. We are going on to the rules calendar. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 30.
House Bill 30 by Representative Ralston, the 7th Jones, the 47th Burns, the 159th England, and the 116th. To be entitled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019, known as the General Appropriations Act.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 30, which is the Supplemental Appropriations Bill. The chair appoints the gentleman from the 159th District, the majority leader of this House, Leader Burns, as chairman to preside over the committee of the whole House.
Good morning. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 116th House District, Representative England, to present the bill. Representative England.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's a glorious day, and I realize that the only thing standing between you and going home and me and Hog Mountain is my presentation, 40,000 automobiles on I-85 South, and the good Lord. So we're going to try to dispatch of this as judiciously as we can, but we're going to also make sure that we answer any questions that you may have. As a start off, as always, a lot of thank yous and kudos go out. A lot of those go out to our outstanding staff. They're flanking me here on the front row. To our subcommittee chairs and those of you that serve as members of the House Appropriations Committee, thank you for the hours of hard work that you put into the document that you see in front of you today. And we literally couldn't do this without you. House Bill 130 that you have in front of you is unique. It amends a budget that has already been amended. And those of you and those of us that were here for the special session, House Bill 1EX, of course, was the amendment that I am referring to. So we have already recognized much of the additional revenue that's typically recognized within the amended budget. So those changes have remained in the FY19 amended that you have in front of you today. However, better than anticipated continued revenue growth for our state has also left a little bit of room for a second amendment or a second increase in that revenue estimate. However, it remains incredibly and extremely conservative, understanding that as we go into this new year, we're looking for many of the changes that we made in our tax code last year to kick in and take effect. So we may see a few little bumps, and we've tried to anticipate that as well. But we are recognizing an additional $192.5 million here. Lion's share of these funds, of course, are 1/3 of them at $61.9 million, almost $70 million, go into the Department of Community Health for Medicaid expenses, just like we normally do. Behavioral health also sees some increases, as well as foster care, to help take care of those among us that cannot see after themselves, our youngest children, and those that don't have the ability to take care of themselves as well as adults. Adding to the amended budget, you will also see the full funding of the Forest Land Protection Act grants going out to our counties. Sheet has just hit your desk in the last little bit, showing you what your county will have received at the end by the end of this fiscal year. So it's about $36 million additional dollars there, and also $14 million in additional water planning funds that go to the Army Corps of Engineers for a reserve contract for water use out to the year of 2050. However, once we get to that point and that is allocated, we will recover that entire $14 million. As we went through this budget and through the work of our subcommittees and subcommittee chairs, we managed to pull together an additional $10 million that we will be putting into the Georgia Development Authority to bolster the loan program that we came together to create during our special session. that adds to the $55 million that we put in for special session to go help and aid our farmers and agriculturalists across this state as they continue to recover from Hurricane Michael's impact. Right now, the $55 million that we originally put in there, as of today, will officially be loaned out. The $10 million additional dollars will go to help an additional 30 to 35 farmers across our state that were impacted by Hurricane Michael. So I think a special shout out is deserved. I'm sorry, this kind of special to me. Special shout out is deserved for Commissioner Gary Black and the Georgia Department of Agriculture, Thomas Carter and his team at the Georgia Development Authority for the work that they did in such a short amount of time, knowing how important many of these loans were for our producers to be able to plant a crop this coming year, and getting $55 million out the door in secure loans to individuals across southwest Georgia and middle Georgia in less than 8 weeks' time from the time we funded it till today, and getting those dollars out there in a program that we have never done anything like in the state of Georgia is certainly commendable to Commissioner Black, his staff at the Georgia Department of Ag, and to Thomas Carter and his staff at the Georgia Development Authority. When you see those guys, thank them and give them a hug, because they have certainly helped a lot of individuals. In addition to the general fund growth, 1% of our prior year revenues are allotted for our enrollment growth in K-12 education. The mid-year adjustment uses this $243 million to fund enrollment growth in K-12 education, as well as promoting additional school security measures across the state. Governor Kemp had proposed a $30,000 grant for every school building in this state to protect our most precious asset, the future of Georgia. And in doing so, these funds will go to the local education agencies, so the local school systems, for them to best decide how to spend these dollars. If you remember, in the original FY19 budget we passed between the House and Senate, we also included $16 million in bond funds for hard goods to harden the schools. That's probably not the right word to use, but to further secure schools. This $30,000 per school will be able to be used for school resource officers or anything that the local school board deems as necessary to protect our children. And another $8.4 million goes into the APEX program to help with school mental health issues as well. So while we may focus our discussion here on the changes we're making, understand that, as always, K-12 education remains one of the most important things that we look at. You know, we often hear quoted and said that where your treasure lies, so therefore is your heart. And I think within the budget that we do every year here, that we show that our heart is certainly our young people in what we do for education around the state. Also, you need to pat yourselves on the back, because we did something outstanding as we left here last year in fully funding QBE. Right now, $10.9 billion in state funds goes to fully fund QBE. I'm going to wrap up my remarks and we'll start through the document. But you're going to see very few changes in the document from the governor's recommended budget for the amended FY19 document. And I think that gives kudos not only to the governor's staff, Governor Kemp's staff, as well as Governor Deal's staff, as we've all worked in this process. It's not a 40-day process. It may be for many of y'all because that's how long we're in town, but for Martha and Christine and all of our House Budget and Research Office staff, the Senate Budget and Evaluation Office, Chairman Hill, myself, our subcommittee chairs on both sides of the building, it is a 12-month year-round process that we try to make sure that we're spending Georgia taxpayer dollars in the most efficient manner as we can. So we'll walk through the document and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have as we conclude walking through the tracking sheet. So if you would follow me in the tracking sheet, you have the bill and the tracking sheet both in front of you. The tracking sheet is a little bit easier to see where the changes have come about. Section 1, the Senate, even though we had a close vote on totally eliminating funding there, I was managed to be able to stave that charge off. No changes there. Section 2, House of Representatives, no changes. Section 3, the joint offices of the General Assembly. Through the leadership of our Speaker and the members of the Legislative Services Committee, we've moved forward on hiring an HR director to help us on managing all of our staff. And so what we've done there at 3.1.2 is an ad for bringing on board that HR director plus a couple of other positions in IT that were needed. Let me back up to 3.1.1 and mention real quick, there you'll see several times throughout the document a couple of different things. One is going to be what you see at 3.1.1. We do self-insure ourselves as a state. So property and casualty insurance, we have a captive company. Basically, it's ourselves. So we basically pay in, just like we do with SHBP and other programs, we pay in whatever it cost us the prior year to cover the claims. So state trooper car hits a house and we pay for it as a state. We pay for it through this program, through that way, through the Department of Administrative Services. So you'll see some additions there. Also, some of it comes from some of the damage done by Hurricane Michael to some of our facilities across the state. And then the other thing that you'll see, and we're not there yet, but you'll see where we've captured some savings from several departments and agencies where we've increased head counts for them and budgeted for that, but yet due to the lag in hiring many times, once the budget goes live on July 1st, a lot of times there are savings that we can go in and capture, and so we've tried to do that as well throughout the document. Office Legislative Counsel 3.3.1, you'll see an ad, and both of these ads here are half of the required amount. Our colleagues in the Senate will bring the other half, but that will help with some of the retention issues in Office Legislative Counsel. Section 4, Audits and Accounts. Again, the DOAS change there at 4.2.1. Court of Appeals, Section 5. You'll see a few changes through there. The self-insured program, a change on per diem at 5.1.2. You know, a couple of judges have moved from appeals up to the Supreme Court, and so you'll see a couple of adjustments between the two courts, taking into account the per diem as it relates to those couple of individuals. And then at 5.1.4, it was a staffing ad, and the subcommittee will be looking at that in the 20 budget instead of the amended budget. Moving on to Section 6, Judicial Counsel, at 6.1.1, 3.1, and 3.1 are those deductions I'd mentioned on the new staffing on capturing the savings from the higher dates there. 4.1 is, again, the self-insured insurance pool. Section 7, Juvenile Courts, adjustment there, again, based on hiring dates. A change in wording at 7.2.1 and 7.2.2. Same amount of money, just need to be phrased a different way within the budget document. Section 8, Prosecuting Attorneys. Again, at 8.2.2, you'll see an adjustment for start dates. And then at 8.2.1 and 8.3.1, the DOAS adds for property and casualty insurance. Superior Courts, Section 9, again, the DOAS change, as well as at 9.3.3, the reduction for start times. Section 10, Supreme Court, the insurance adjustment, then moving on down to 10.1.2, that keys back to the per diem adjustment that was made within the Court of Appeals. Increase in funds for salary adjustment for the state trooper that is stationed with the Supreme Court at 10.1.3. and then some reductions for savings on start dates at 10.1.4. State Accounting Office, no changes. Department of Administrative Services, no changes there. Section 13, Department of Ag, see some minor adjustments there. And in Consumer Protection, again, capturing savings based on start dates. 13.4.2, related to the Georgia Ag Tax Exemption Program, GATE program as we know it in short, on some additional folks that are needed there. And then at 13.4.3, again, some savings on start dates as well. 13.7.1 is the $10 million add for the Georgia Development Authority for those loan programs. I don't know if I mentioned it a minute ago or not, but the average of those loans, the loans are capped at $400,000 a piece to these individuals, but the average so far has been about $290,000 in those loans. Banking and finance at 14, no changes. DBHDD at section 15, I think one change is all within that department at 15.8.3. Again, capturing the savings on related to later hiring dates than what were originally budgeted. Section 16 DCA, you'll see a change there at 16.3.3, dealing with start dates. Section 17, Department of Community Health. If you'll look over at, I'm getting there, 1712.1. Again, hiring date slot or slots on the use of the slot, the funds for the use in the slots for our GME programs across the state. Not all of them were needed exactly when we had them funded, so we've got a little bit of a savings there. And at 17.12.2, you'll see an ad for the Medical College of Georgia to help further them toward their designation as a National Cancer Institute facility, and helping them further down the road there with that program they've been working on for about 5 years now. Section 18, no changes. Section 19, corrections, no changes. Section 20, Department of Defense, no changes. Section 21, driver services, no changes. Section 22, decal, no changes. Economic development at section 23, no changes. Section 24, education. You'll see some minor adjustments there. Again, the first one at 24.1.2 under ag education relates to start date, but at 24.1.3, after the findings of Chairman Jasper's School Security Study Committee over the past year, they pointed out that many of our youth camps around the state, and the state owns youth camps for FFA and for 4-H, that there are some gaps that need to be covered. And so what we're doing here, and we'll be looking at in the bond package for some additional security measures for all of those camps, but primarily for the time being, what we're doing is allowing for the camps to contract with school resource officers to actually be there while students are present and provide protection. 24.2.1, the audio video technology film grants, taking out the $3.5 million ad there for the time being until we get a little further information on that item. 24.6.1, again, a savings for later start dates. At 24.18, that section there dealing with the local 5 mil share, a true up of numbers. The same holds true for 24.19 at 19.1 and at 19.2. Also the true up of numbers based on the funding formula there. At 24.22.1, there is where you'll see the school security grants. There is a small change there. There were a few facilities, some of our GNET facilities and some of the charter schools and college career academies were skipped over on the initial list, and so we've gone in and captured those and made sure that they have that same grant opportunity as well. At 24.24.2, under our state schools, the schools for the deaf and blind, as many times I've said from this well, we wind up between us and the state school board being the Department of Education for those three institutions. We wind up being their school board in many ways. So the primary responsibility for the safety and for the upkeep of those facilities fall on our shoulders. And you'll see there a one-time add of $1 million to allow them at 2 of their facilities to install backup generators, because these are 2 residential facilities. So when the electricity goes off, so does the heat, so does the air conditioning, so does the lights. We're just trying to make sure that those young people in those facilities are taken care of. Section 25 ERS, no changes there. Section 26 Forestry Commission, no changes. Section 27 Office of the Governor, no changes. Human Services, Section 28. If you'll look at 28.6.2, you'll see a few changes there, basically allowing them to use some of those unused personnel funds. Instead of taking those funds back, allowing them to use those funds for several things that they're working on and needed and had requests for. And you'll see those requests at 28.6.2, 6.3, and 6.4. And at 6.4, Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee realized we have a gap on information as it relates to many of our children in foster care. And many times there may be something about that household that a DFACS worker really needs to be able to see, something that's going on at kind of exterior of what they're seeing as a DFACS caseworker. And what this will do is allow the integration of several of our systems together, so that those caseworkers and other entities will be able to look and see just exactly what all is going on to be able to make the best decisions for the safety of those children that are either foster children or that are being held under DFACS, or not observation, but under DFACS custody, or the parents that have DFACS that are helping them, just to help us better understand what's going on with those cases. That's all the changes in Section 28. Section 29, Office of the Insurance Commissioner. Capturing some of the savings from some late hire dates, but also allowing them to use a portion of those extra funds to go toward the purchase of radios for many of their insurance fraud investigators out in the field. They right now are operating with cell phones, and as many of us know, as we go back to our homes this afternoon, there are certain places, once you get outside of the metro areas, cell phones don't necessarily work real well. Well, if you're an insurance fraud investigator, there are people that are not real happy with you showing up sometimes, and we want to make sure that those individuals have the tools in hand to call for help if they need help, and that's what we're doing there at 29.5.4. Moving on to GBI, Section 30. 30.1.2 is allowing for some planning and design to begin on the Northwest Georgia GBI Crime Lab. There are no facilities in that part of the state that are up to the standard that they need to be for the investigations that are going on. This is something that our late rules chairman had been working on for several years, trying to get those facilities updated up there. And so this was something that GBI had asked for. Actually, I think they'd asked for it maybe in the 20 budget, and we were able to do it, move that up just a little bit to help them and help your sheriffs and police departments out as well. 30.3.2, again, an adjustment for start dates, but also at 30.3.3, you'll see an add pulled forward from the 20 budget. And what that will do is help buy some new equipment and some replacement equipment for the labs and the lab technicians working at the state crime lab on some of the backlog of cases. You'll look at 30.4.3, again, using some existing funds to do some of the retirement payouts for some of their investigator positions that were filled immediately after some retirements. Moving on to Section 31, Juvenile Justice. Again, looking at utilization, so at 30.1.2, those beds have not been used as much as what were initially thought, as that had kind of rolled out last year. So capturing some savings there, as well as at 31.4.2, dealing with the Cadwell Regional Youth Detention Center. It has not opened at the time we budgeted for it to. So at Section 32, Department of Labor, no changes. Section 33, Department of Law, just a capture of hire date savings there. Department of Natural Resources, no changes for DNR. Pardons and Parole, Section 35. They were asking for some one-time funds related to vehicles, and what we've said is we're going to look at that in the 20 budget, so that's really the only change there for them. Public defenders, they had at 37.1.2, they had a one-time need for some urgent replacement of some aging computer equipment, and so Chairman Welch and his subcommittee felt we need to go ahead and make that happen now. And then one-time funds for some additional public defender retirements, and as well as the adjustment for start dates at 37.2.3. Some of you may have questions, or I get a few strange looks when we talk about retirement payouts. When we went through the recession in 08, 9, 10, 11, and 12, we significantly trimmed just about every agency in the state, which in the past, many of those payouts had been done through a little bit of float that these agencies may have. Well, we took the float away. So now it necessitates us having to come back and help them from time to time on these when they do have long-term tenured employees that have been there and have not taken sick days, have not taken vacation days because they're so committed to their jobs. We want to make sure that they are compensated for those as well. Under Section 38, Department of Public Health, 38.1.3, this House kicked off a program a few years ago dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia-related diseases. We call it Georgia Alzheimer's Project at the time. It's now called Georgia Memory Net. And now it's time that program has stood up. It's time for us to let folks know that program is up and running to allow for the early diagnosis and beginning of treatment for Alzheimer's and related dementias. So we've had an ask for funding to increase that public awareness, and we're complying there as well. 38.3.2, just a reduction in administration there at DPH for some vacancies. That's all the changes in public health. Under public safety, again, Section 39 at 39.1.2. They actually do have some retirement and leave payouts that are needed there, but they do have some delayed start dates for hiring, so we just allowed them to utilize those existing funds for that as well. And then at 39.4, you will also see at 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4, where we're just allowing them to use some existing funds to do several things that they've had on their plate for a while. 39.5.2, again, another utilizing existing funds on those retirement payouts. At 39.8.2, our Public Safety Subcommittee wanted to look a little bit deeper into the issue dealing with the storage and destruction of paper documents as it's related to, there needs to be a little bit of a code change there on how long those documents are held. Right now, the code, I think, is infinite. So if there's an action through post, they have to maintain those records forever in a hard copy. So we want to look at adjusting that code section on the length of capture of that information, and then we'll go forward with looking at digitizing and then doing away with those paper documents. Section 40, Public Service Commission. See a couple of adjustments there at 40.3.4, dealing with some staff retention issues that they're having, and at 40.3.5, also allowing them to use some of the existing funds they have for staff retention as they continue to, of course, monitor not only Plant Vogel but several other projects around the state as well. Section 41, Board of Regents. Under Ag Experiment at 41.1.1 and 41.3.1, you'll see a couple of reductions based on start dates there as well on some of the research scientists. Moving on down to public libraries at 41.14.2, a small $40,000 ad there for some additional funds for some major repairs and renovations at one of our public libraries across the state. And then at 41.15.1, a small reduction, actually capturing of savings where we established the Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation at ABAC last year. Due to a little bit of a lag in that getting up and running, there were some savings there that we could capture as well. 41.19.1, again, capture for later hire dates. At 41.21.3, under Georgia Military College, you'll see a reduction of 133,398 there, but you'll also see an add at 4121.5 of 30,000. The 30,000, they were one of the groups that we found that were missed in the school security grant, so we're going back in to take care of their primary and high school, the preparatory academy there. But at the 41.21.3, fully funding them in the 20 budget takes care of that issue, and so we were able to capture that at this time for a savings. Department of Revenue, Section 42, 42.6.2, again, based on hire dates, we were able to make a slight deduction there. Secretary of State, no changes. Section 44, Student Finance, one small adjustment at 44.3.1 at the Engineering Scholarship. Just like we do with some of our medical schools around the state, Mercer and Morehouse, we provide some engineering scholarships that go to some other schools to help fill the demand and need. This has been an extremely successful program in the Warner Robins area for training engineers going to work at Robins Air Force Base, and it actually has been a pretty good recruiting tool to get folks to come to that area to stay and work and raise their families as well. So that's the only change there under Student Finance. Teacher Retirement System, Section 45, no changes. 46, the Technical College System of Georgia, no changes there. Transportation, normally in the mid-year budget, we will do several adjustments under DOT. However, if you'll recall, when we were here in special session, we made those adjustments then, so there are no changes under Department of Transportation. Veterans Services, no changes, and then the State Board of Workmen's Compensation, no changes there. Mr. Chairman, that's the walk through the document, and I am glad to attempt to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a very thorough presentation of changes and additions to the budget, truing up. So thank you very much for your dedication and your diligence and your stewardship of this state's finances. We appreciate that very much. But I did have one question, if the gentleman would yield for a question from the chair.
Oh, absolutely.
You made mention of the fact about funding for the Senate, and it was a very close vote. Is that correct? Well,
it was. It was quite a contentious debate. However, our colleagues on the House Appropriations Committee did feel that it was necessary in order to continue having a bicameral General Assembly that they remain in existence.
But further question.
Yes, absolutely.
Do I see that as a pathway forward in the future? We could take some action there.
I hope it. I hope the good faith gesture that we've made there, continues to build on a loving relationship with our colleagues across the building.
Thank you for that thorough explanation. I'll certainly will continue to consider that as we look forward to dealing with our friends across the other side. Mr. Chairman, you do have a question. The chair will now recognize Representative Bodie from the 62nd to your left.
Yes.
Yes. Do the gentleman yield?
Yes.
I want to direct you to page 22 of line 17.15. It's dealing with increased funds for the external consultant to review and analyze the Medicaid waiver options. Sir, is it not true that we are going to appropriate $1 million in state funds for this particular consultant?
That would be correct.
Is it not only true that the federal government is also going to match another $1 million as well?
That would be correct.
So the total cost is going to be $2 million for the Medicaid waiver consultant?
Yes.
No further questions.
And I would add, too, that in consideration of looking at a Medicaid waiver, it's not a very simple process. And you, as Martha likes to say, you get one bite at that apple. So you make sure that what you apply for within that waiver is exactly what you need, because you don't really get a chance to go back and change it once you've made application. So it's incredibly important to make sure that you get the ask right on the front end. DCH, as I mentioned earlier, on the things that we had to do during the Great Recession and reducing staff levels in many places, DCH was one of those that felt that impact too, as we felt it important to keep educating children, to keep taking care of folks. So a lot of times we took those cuts within administration. And so in doing so, you kind of narrowed the bandwidth. For a little bit I know about computers and internet and all that stuff, you kind of narrowed the bandwidth and capability of a lot of things to be done internally. However, I will note that the last time that we sought an 1115 waiver, we did bring in an external consultant at that point as well to move forward with it, because it's not a simple project at all, and you want to make sure, as I said, you get that one bite, and you want to make sure you get it right.
Mr. Chairman, you have
I thought you'd fallen asleep.
I was getting close.
Okay.
Not quite. It was too important. I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, you have a question from the lady from the 24th, Representative Gilligan, to your right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all of your hard work on this particular bill. Do you yield to a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you very much. And I was looking at this, and in section 41.13, I see that there's money allocated for the medical facility in Augusta, Georgia. And I just want to ask you, with more than 40,000 children in the United States in cancer treatment each year, and with only 1 in 8 chance of survival of that diagnosis, will this not help with our efforts to combat childhood cancer?
Absolutely.
Thank you so
certainly
much.
Will. Thank you for the question. Mr. Chairman.
To your left,
oh, okay.
One more, Mr. Chairman, if you will indulge us. The lady from the 105th House District, Representative McLeod, has a question to your left.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will the gentleman yield for a
Yes.
question? I wanted to follow up with Representative Bordy's question. We are putting roughly $2 million into the consultant. Are we looking at comparing that to also Medicaid expansion?
This is purely for the consultant to look at a waiver.
Is there going to be a consultant to look at the Medicaid expansion?
That will be a debate for another day.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, that's all of the questions. We appreciate the presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I would ask for everyone's favorable consideration on the committee substitute to House Bill 130. Now yield the will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate, as always, your presentation and your hard work of yourself and your committee and your staff. The chair would now recognize Chairman England for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that House Bill 30 do pass by committee substitute.
We have a motion that House Bill 30 do pass by committee substitute. Is there a second to that motion? Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 171st, Chairman Powell.
I second the motion.
We now have a motion and a second to the motion. The motion at this time, we'll call the question on House Bill 30. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. Clearly, the ayes have it. House Bill 30 passes by committee substitute. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England.
Mr. Chair, as the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the Committee of the Whole House to the House.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader, Leader Burns.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 30, has instructed me, as its chairman, report the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 30 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 30 and has reported the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 30 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is hereby dissolved. We had members that wish to be heard on the bill. The chair recognizes the minority leader of the Georgia House, Leader Trammell, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of this House. You know, I'm going to support this supplemental budget. Constitutionally, the budget is the only thing that we're really charged to do as appropriators and members of this General Assembly. We only have a 40-day session, and when it comes to money conversations, we don't get to have them very often, and this is one of those opportunities to talk about money, to talk about what we do with the state's funds and what our priorities are. So there is a line item in the budget that deals with allocation of funds to hire a consultant to explore some type of Medicaid waivers. And the only thing I want to do with my time this morning is I just want to put some facts on the table as we go through this session of the General Assembly to talk about what we could do and who we could cover as a House and Senate. And to that end, I put on your desk a copy of the fiscal note for House Bill 37, which is just a straight Medicaid expansion bill. You know, we're contemplating hiring someone to fill out a waiver and go through a process to see who we could cover and how we could construct it. But Medicaid is an existing program. Expanding Medicaid is a sure, certain way to cover almost 500,000 Georgians. It's the fastest way to provide relief for people who do not have insurance who could be covered under Medicaid expansion. And when we've talked about this in the past as a body, and let's be honest, I mean, most of the conversation that we have when it comes to this topic doesn't come through the General Assembly. It comes through opportunities to talk or things that are in the media, and you see a bunch of facts or figures bandied about. So the hope is that this will at least ground our discussion in the real figures about who would be covered and what it would cost. And to that end, I would just point you to the second page of the fiscal note, and it goes through fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2021, and fiscal year 2022. As the chairman said, the debate about what we do is a debate for another day. But when it comes to money, you got to start thinking about how you're going to spend the money right away. And fiscal year 2020 is going to be upon us. And when we do the general appropriations for that, we need to look at covering these Georgians who are referenced in this fiscal note. And their only voice today will be the time that we give them looking at this fiscal note and the time in this well talking about their need and how we need to spend to address that need. And the estimate in the fiscal note for fiscal year 2020, we could implement Medicaid expansion in this state for a net cost on the low end of the estimate of $139.4 million in state funds and on the high end of the estimate, $147.6 million in state fund for fiscal year 2020. And I would just point out to you that those figures, even on the high end, are less than the money that we allocate in the supplemental budget today. We'll have roughly a $27 billion budget. We can cover 500,000 Georgians with an appropriation that the net cost of this state will be, for the next fiscal year, less than $150 million. And let's be honest, you want to know when we spend money, and I want to know when we spend money, what is the return on investment? And I submit to you that covering 500,000 Georgians at that cost in a $27 billion budget is money well spent. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the time this morning. Members, I urge you to consider this as we go forward. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to yield to any questions if there are any.
You have a couple of questions. Do you yield?
I yield.
Chair recognizes the Minority Caucus Whip, Representative Bodie, to your left for a question.
Mr. Leader, do you yield?
I yield.
Mr. Leader, is it not true, based upon the fiscal note that you mentioned here today, that by expanding Medicaid in Georgia, that an estimated 486 Georgians to 598,000 Georgians in fiscal year 2022 could be insured?
That's what the fiscal note states.
Is it also true, do you further yield, Mr.
I
Leader?
do.
Is it also true that by expanding Medicaid in the state of Georgia, based on the fiscal note, that the state of Georgia can draw down in federal monies $2.3 billion to $2.8 billion in fiscal year 2020?
The gentleman is correct.
Is it not also true that by drawing down this federal money through full Medicaid expansion, that it is estimated to save the state agencies in fiscal year 2020, next year, $67.6 million to the citizens of the state of Georgia?
The gentleman is correct. There are savings in departmental lines that are referenced in the fiscal note. The net cost to the state in terms of state spending would be right at just under $150 million for fiscal year 2020, according to the fiscal note.
The leader further yield.
I do.
Is it not true, by fully expanding Medicaid in the state of Georgia, it is the quickest way, other than waivers, in getting affordable health care to the citizens in this state that currently do not have any Medicaid or any insurance coverage at all?
A straight expansion of Medicaid represents the fastest route to cover these Georgians referenced in the fiscal note.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions.
Do you further yield?
I will.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Isn't it true this Medicaid expansion targets adults, and that this state already, through our state children's health insurance program, SCHIP, has a very generous coverage for children, people that can't really have any influence over their health coverage themselves?
It's true that Medicaid expansion affects the population in ages 18 to 65.
Do you further yield?
I will.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon to your left for a question.
Mr. Leader, do you yield?
I do.
Thank you. Is it not true that if we increase the tobacco tax by 50 cents, we could raise $200 million and therefore cover up to 500,000 Georgians with health care?
I don't know the exact number, but there are certainly many ways to represent a revenue. But the bottom line is, on we have the revenue we need to expand Medicaid even without a measure to do that.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes Representative Lott to your right for a question.
Leader Trammell, is the Medicare expansion that you are requesting up to 138% of the federal poverty level for able-bodied adults, including those with no children?
So just for clarification, we're just talking about Medicaid, not Medicare, but the Medicaid expansion would be from 0% to 138% of the federal poverty level, which is what is contemplated in the Affordable Care Act, in which 36 states have already done.
Further question?
I yield.
Is it not true that those people that are needing health insurance qualify for the exchange program, what would be considered Obamacare, if at the level of 100% of the federal poverty level? And if so, and if you are in agreement, why would we then provide that at the state level?
The fiscal note goes through 3 categories of newly insured. So some would have insurance coverage through the exchange, but they make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but they don't make enough money to qualify for the subsidies. So they have the most expensive health care in the state of Georgia, and they're least able to afford it. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the time this morning. I would yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Moore to speak to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Members of the Georgia House of Representatives, please pardon my ignorance on House rules with the outburst with Leader Trammell, but he was speaking to my heart at that moment and making the point that I want to make today. And that's what we're voting on in House Bill 30. What it gives evidence to in House Bill 30 is that Georgia is doing some great things. Chairman England pointed out so many great points about all the great things that we're spending our money on. We have extra revenue. We have more money. So what should we do with more money? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring to your attention that we are some $13 billion in debt with bonds. We have interest of something like $3 billion. Imagine all the great things we could do if we didn't have to pay $3 billion in interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I will oppose House Bill 30 today, and I will oppose it on behalf of the people of District 1, because in District 1, we are seeing an exodus into Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at competition with all of the states in our union. Residents of Rossville, Georgia used to live in a metropolis. Today, they pay high income tax and high fuel tax. They can drive some 2 or 3 minutes north into Tennessee and buy gas for 10 to 50 cents a gallon cheaper. One of the richest communities in our state, one of the most elegant, Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Residents there stay in our state. Why? Because they have one of the best elementary schools in our entire state. They don't receive any Title I funding either. The parents there donate that school to make it the best. But you know what I hear from them? We're ready to move to Tennessee unless we can do something about our income tax. Now, ladies and gentlemen of this House, I commend you for the bipartisan support of helping lower that income tax. But when we have something like $300 million left over, and we're not putting one dime of that, one dime, to paying off any bonds or to going to lower any of our motor fuel taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of District 1 are tired of hearing about the rainbows, unicorns, and flowers of things like the One Georgia Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that we put something in this budget to helping lower the taxes of the citizens of District 1. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have a question. Do you care to yield?
I don't care to yield.
Okay. Is that a yes or a no?
That's I would welcome any questions.
Okay.
I have no objection to yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Shannon to your right for a question.
Does a representative yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Isn't it true that House Bill 30 also provides additional funding for charter school supplements, which is what we heard former Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle admit on audio that he knew was bad public policy, but still he supported it?
I am not aware, but I would not be surprised.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'm open to more questions.
You have none.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and pardon my ignorance on the rules.
Chair recognizes Representative Gertler to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to this bill, not because I want to, because I think I need to. Throughout the years, my 2 years here, I've opposed the budget for many reasons. Most of those reasons have to do with subsidies, interference in the free market. And when I looked at the budget here again, once again I found some more of those. Now we may disagree or agree on those things, but as Republicans I believe one of the founding principles of our party is no interference in the free markets. We want free markets. So when I look at things like the One Georgia Authority, which I had a great conversation with our chairman of appropriations, and we disagree on those points, and that's fine. But when I look at the things like we're funding to Mercer, almost $10 million to Mercer, that really got to me, and I feel like I was compelled to say something. I'm a contractor. I run a small business with my father, and we do not get government handouts. We're a private business, and I'll adamantly oppose this bill for that reason. Almost $10 million of hard-working money from Georgians to go into a private university, no matter how good the intention is, it's still not the proper role of government, and it's not Republican. This is why I'm going to introduce and reiterate House Bill 4. For the last 2 years, I've had to vote against these budgets because it violates my conscience and the things that I ran my campaign on, and it would violate the principles of the party that I represent. I wish I could vote for a budget, but I can't vote for this one either. But House Bill 4 would make the budget process a lot more transparent and more accountable. It would divide the budget instead of an omnibus budget, what we are forced to vote on today, and break it down to 49 separate departments. I mentioned this yesterday, so that we would be able to look at those departments separately so that we can vote on the merits of each appropriation. And it would take more time to do it. We'd have more debate, and I think it would be better for all of Georgians. Today, I cannot support the bill for those reasons, many other reasons, but the main reason is the Mercer and also the One Georgia Authority. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I really appreciate your consideration and listening to me and my concerns for House District 8. I'll yield back for questions.
Chair recognizes Chairman Houston for a question to your right.
Is it not true when you mentioned Mercer University, you stepped on a sore subject around here? Is it not true when we couldn't get doctors in rural Georgia that Mercer University came to the aid? And that's one of the reasons we started giving Mercer University scholarships for doctors. And we need engineers to bring more people in this state. And isn't it not true that Mercer was one of the people that came to our aid? Thank you. I yield the well, whatever you call it. I'm so mad. I can't believe you mentioned Mercer.
Thank you for the question.
Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams to your left for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield.
It's not true. I've been making copious notes, and I wanted a clarification. You said that HB 30 is not Republican. Would you expound upon that?
I believe in the free market, and when we give taxpayers money to private individuals or private companies, that is anti-Republican. Yes, sir.
Would the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, I won't ask that in deference, but thank you very kindly for explaining the meaning of the GOP to me. Thank you.
I further yield. Any more
Do you
questions?
further yield?
I further yield.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Are there any institutions in Middle Georgia that teach engineering other than Mercer University?
I'm sure there is.
We've got Georgia Southern, we've got University of Georgia has a growing program, Georgia Tech, we've got the Kennesaw State University. Isn't it true the state of Georgia needs to have engineering programs that support the economic vitality of our state?
Absolutely.
Isn't it true that we give tuition grants to our private institutions across the state, some in your district, to help minimize the cost even of private university education through our Hope Scholarship Program?
That is true.
Okay. I just want to encourage you to, before you vote no on this bill, to consider no budget's perfect. There's a lot of things that members in this chamber might take out or put in and considering these things. And if there's 2 line items you don't like in this budget, that seems to be a pretty small number of issues given all the goodness that's being done in this budget. And I would encourage your support of this budget with other House colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that comes
Chair
back to...
recognizes Chairman Richard Smith to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I know you were critical of the money going to Mercer as far as the med school. Have you been to Southwest Georgia to see the number of doctors that are in several of those counties?
No, I have not, sir.
Well, if you pass through, you won't find any. There are several counties down there who are basically a healthcare desert. And that's one of the advantages of having a organization like Mercer. They come up, they set up a medical school in Columbus, and when they select students in large part based on zip code where they live, because those kids are much more apt to go back to the county where they came from. You won't find a student at the Medical College of Georgia that goes to Southwest Georgia because they can't pay for their schooling. You know, they'll be in debt for $215,000. If you'll take a look, Mercer pays for that education if they go back to those counties. So I would be very careful about being critical of a medical school when you have one that's supplying doctors to areas who don't have one.
Yes, sir. And I respond to that. The principle is that we do not give money to private individuals or private companies. That is the principle. Without the greatest of intentions, of course we need doctors, we need engineers, but we do not subsidize, we're not supposed to subsidize in the proper role of government to those private individuals or private companies, and that's what we're doing with this bill, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's put it another way. When you have a community who has raised in excess of $13 million, who has identified a building of 70,000 square feet to house this facility, I think you've got a community who has skin in the game, who realizes the importance of this. And when you start cherry picking areas where you want to spend money, well, maybe we need to take out a forestry unit in your county. Maybe we need to do some other things like that because we're subsidizing some of these issues too. And you know, those forestry units, and I'm a former ag agent with the University of Georgia Extension Service. I know exactly what they do, and I appreciate what they do because they do a very worthwhile business. But we're subsidizing when every time that forestry unit goes to a homeowner or goes to a tree farm, aren't we?
Sure.
You want to cut that budget?
It would be a lot easier to have a budget we could look at by department instead of an omnibus budget bill. That's where it comes back to HB4. So we could have those discussions. At one time, I believe that it did happen at this time that we would vote by that. I don't know when it changed that we have an omnibus budget bill, but it's not right, and I don't support it, and I would be pushing House Bill forward as much as I can.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Sir, are you aware of the budgeted items in regards to Young Harris College as far as the HOPE funds, dual enrollment funds that are supporting a great college in the state of Georgia, Young Harris? Have you considered that?
Yes, sir, and that's something that I do agree with, the $3.5 million to the Hope Scholarship. I do agree with that, but I cannot violate my conscience and vote something that I don't believe in, and I'm forced to vote for an omnibus budget bill. And with that, I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. There were a number of other questions. Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem of the House to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to take a moment to express my grave concerns over the proposal to do a straight-up Medicaid expansion. Fortunately, we have the not just the audit that gives some numbers. What I prefer to look at is what other states have experienced. We have a number of years in many states who have gone through just straight up as proposed under the ACA Medicaid expansion. What we unequivocally have seen in most states, number one, emergency room visits do not decrease, they go up. That was lauded as would be one of the advantages of providing people with Medicaid. Number two, we see of those who take Medicaid expansion, about a third of them are currently covered under private insurance. Some of them are college students who have no income or very little income, but their parents are currently paying for it. The reason many drop it who currently have private insurance is why wouldn't you? There are no copays, there's no deductibles to meet. It's been said that it's the fastest way to insure about 500,000 Georgians. It's also perhaps the fastest way to crowd out other significant priorities, and that's what we're seeing in many other states. For my teachers who we love dearly and we support here, be careful what you might ask for, because it absolutely would crowd down the available money in some available to K through 12 education, which is the largest part of our budget. You know, it's not 5 million, 10 million, it's hundreds of millions. Additionally, what we've seen in most states that have expanded through the just straight up ACA expansion, what we've seen is about double the number of people that were originally projected to accept it, take it. Now, one thing I do want to particularly emphasize that Representative Lott mentioned, a good percentage of these folks are currently covered under the exchange. So currently, every person who qualifies between 100% and 138%, pretty sizable chunk of folks, are currently covered with very significant federal subsidies. We would be taking them off the federal rolls and putting them on our taxpayers' backs. I do think that it's important to note how incredibly generous Georgia is now. What is always lost in this discussion is almost 1 in 5 Georgians are currently covered by Medicaid through our generosity. And it's the most vulnerable. It's the aged. It's those who have disabilities. And it's the young, as Representative Setzler mentioned. In fact, Georgia currently pays for about 80% through Medicaid of the cost for nursing home care for the elderly. That's generous. Georgia currently covers for most births and prenatal care. More births are paid for through Medicaid than are paid for through private insurance today. That's really generous, and it's important, and those people are depending on it. And when you want to accept a, I believe, absolutely unsustainable scenario that would reimburse the states for 90% of the costs at the federal level for those who are not the most vulnerable. I'm not saying some of them aren't in need or that we shouldn't explore innovative solutions to help them, but how can you really believe long term it's sustainable and 90 out of 100% would be reimbursed by the feds for a less vulnerable population, the able-bodied without children, than those who are truly depending on it? In fact, President Obama suggested a blended rate within a year of the passage of the ACA. Let me assure you it's coming, and that's not reflected in the audit. Georgia's very generous in other ways. Republican leadership has led to over 200 clinics, health clinics, throughout the nation that already serve many of the people that are anticipated under straight-up Medicaid expansion. I do think there's more we can do through innovative solutions. I know that Governor Kemp, it was mentioned in the newspaper today, and a number of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are interested in looking at some other innovative solutions that, yes, include some expansion through waivers so that we can help those who need a hand up, particularly for a short period of time. We know after experiencing the Great Recession that there are those who lose their job through no fault of their own. We need to anticipate that. But just to more free stuff, I'm just assure you, really isn't free. And more free stuff, although it does fit very well on a bumper sticker, it fits really well in an ad or in a pretty speech, doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And I would encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to look very carefully before we add an entire new entitlement program that doesn't really look at what are the long-term implications. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Lady has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the chair of the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, Chairman Knight, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to commend Chairman England. I've been up here going on 15 years, and I've watched over the years how conservative the budgeting is in the state of Georgia. And I've watched the members of this body on both aisles guard the taxpayers' dollars. And we are the #1 state to do business in, and it's because we are a conservative state fiscally. But I want to point out the hypocrisy of the comments from the gentleman from the 8th District. Young Harris College is in that gentleman's district. It is a private college. It is one of the most prestigious colleges in the state of Georgia. The hypocrisy is to get up here and to rail against the budget because there were scholarships at Mercer University, another one of Georgia's great private institutions, but yet then say he agrees with the scholarships and the public funding that goes to Young Harris. You know, the public funding that went through the hurricane as we tried to do all that we could to help with the hurricane victims and the recent hurricane in southwest Georgia. I wonder if you agree with that. But I'll also turn it around and wonder about the doctors and the emergency personnel that would be needed in northeast Georgia in the event of an ice storm. I have never heard so much hypocrisy and, quite frankly, a lack of knowledge of the budgeting process. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. That appears to be all of those who wish to be heard on the bill. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 30? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. The chair recognizes Chairman England, Chair of the House Appropriations Committee, for the chairman's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Knight and I came 15 years ago to this esteemed body. And in 15 years, I don't know that I've been to the well to speak against a bill or another individual or a group of individuals or to rebut comments, but I feel compelled to today. I feel compelled to come and talk to you and defend our budgeting process. I come to talk to you to defend those of you that have had a hand in that budgeting process. Whether you're on the Appropriations Committee or not, it is an open process. It is one that I've prided myself now for 9 years in always having an open door policy. If you wish to come speak to me on any budgetary item, you're always welcome. We set that as a culture in our suite. Our subcommittee chairs do likewise. As was mentioned a few minutes ago by another speaker, talking about transparency and the ability to vote on 49 separate budgets, I would mind him that that's the way the federal government does it. And how well is that working out for any of us in either party right now? We're a week and a half past a shutdown and a week and a half toward a possible another shutdown because of a separate budgeting process. We're here 40 days. Each of you have a life, each of us have a life outside of this building. I like to get back home and tinker with old tractors. Sam Watson likes to get back home and plant cabbage. Tommy Benton likes to get back home and play with grandbabies. Many of you like to go fishing. Many of you like to go to work. But I'm telling you, if you want to drag out the process, we'll be here all year. I guess it would require a constitutional change because the Constitution says we're only here 40 days and we are to pass a balanced budget in that 40-day period. Also mentioned by another speaker a few minutes ago was talking about borrowed money. When I opened up my comments originally, I was talking about heading I-85 north. From there, I'll take the 211 exit, head toward Winder. I'm glad those roads are there because it gets me home a little quicker. If it weren't for our bonds that we sell every year, those roads would not be there. Those bridges would not be there. The schools that many of your children are in today would not be there. The colleges and universities and technical colleges across the state would not be there were it not through the opportunity of selling bonds. And by the way, when we sell bonds with a AAA bond rating for over 20 years, guess who gets the best rates in town? The state of Georgia. Guess whose bonds within 24 hours once they are offered are completely sold and subscribed to? The state of Georgia. Few others can say that. You know why? Because we pay off our debts. We pay off our debts and our obligations just like we're supposed to. We live up to those bond covenants. We keep our word. And the opportunity to go in and refinance those bonds, we take those opportunities as well to save money. But when you can use, my daddy taught me a long time ago in business, when you can use somebody else's money cheaper than you can use your own, that's the time you do it. And that's exactly what we do when we take out bonded indebtedness. Not one person is paid from those bond sales or proceeds. It goes to brick, mortar, concrete, steel, things that we can feel and touch. Our friends at Mercer have been brought up this now afternoon. I'm going to refer back to that road I was mentioning headed north here in a little while. As I have always understood our state constitution where it comes to the gratuities clause, in order for the state to pay for anything, it has to receive something in return for those dollars spent. Under one of the previous gentlemen that spoke, under their analogy, the road builder that we sign a contract with to pave I-85 or to pave 75 or to pave 285 or I-95 or I-16 or any other road across this state, we wouldn't be doing that. We'd be doing that solely as a state. We would own that equipment ourselves. We would assume all of that liability. We would assume all of that expense, but yet through a contract, it's cheaper for us as a state to do it through a contract. Our agreements with Mercer and Morehouse stand on the backs of a contract for services provided and rendered to this state of Georgia. Those two institutions came to us many years ago, and Chairman Smiley sitting here nodding his head, I don't know how long ago, 40, 45 years ago. Those two institutions came to this state and said, we realize there's a shortage in doctors for rural and underserved areas across this state. We can help you. We will help provide that service through a contractual relationship to educate doctors and healthcare professionals and engineers, later on added, across this state. You as a state do not have enough capacity within your own school to meet the needs, and we can do it, and we can do it in a way that doesn't cost you what it would cost to expand your school in order to do that. Talk about a return on investment, Leader Trammell. It's been a pretty good return on investment. Whether you're in House District 1, 8, 116, 180, more than likely you have interacted, or one of your family members has interacted with a doctor or a healthcare professional that studied at one of those two institutions. I'm proud of the job that they've done for us. As I wrap up, several things have been said also in this discussion about what we pay in state income tax and state tax liability. I would remind everyone that Georgia consistently ranks as one of the cheapest places to live in the United States as far as your state tax liability is concerned. While our income tax rate, maximum rate may be 5.75% currently, when you take into account all of the other state taxes and fees that are paid in consideration with our surrounding states and those across the nation, we alternate between number 49 and 50 as the cheapest place to live in this country when you look at that. When we look today at the dollars per capita that we are spending in this budget, and the budget we'll look at here in a couple more weeks, the per capita spending level, when adjusted for inflation, goes back to about 2002 or 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Those of you involved in the budgeting process, thank you so much for your help. Thank you for your prayers for me. Thank you for your prayers for our subcommittee chairs and all the members. And to the Georgians across the state, the nearly 11 million Georgians, thank you for your prayers every day for this body. That we have the opportunity to come and have these disagreements, that we have the opportunity to come and have these discussions. But most of all, thank you to the good Lord for the opportunity you've given each and every one of us to be here to help take care of those 11 million people. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
You have a question, if you'd care to yield, so you'll be transparent.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Gertler to your left for a question.
Gentleman yield.
Yes.
Yesterday, or just a second ago, you said that we can come and talk to you. And is it not true that I did talk to you on the House floor about a certain issue? And is it and with the budget? And is it also not true that we might disagree, but I think in the long run on economic values and those types of things, we all want what's best for Georgians. And this is the process. And is it not true that having the process and having discussion makes it a better process?
Well, I disagree with you on a lot of things, but I'd probably agree with you on that one. It does, and that's what I'm here for. That's what every one of us is here for. I will remind you that I came to you looking for you yesterday because I understood you had a question, but you had not reached out to me at that point either.
It's the gentleman 30 yield.
Certainly.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, I did attend the subcommittee hearing, and we did discuss that as well. I attended the full committee hearing and was actually unable to ask questions there at those committees. That's why I wanted to ask the question to you on the floor.
Well, I understand that. Again, I remind you that I was the one that came to you because I understood you had a question. And as I explained to you yesterday, just as any other committee operates in this House, members of the committees are permitted to ask questions. If we didn't have some structure or some format in which to operate through, as we do with Robert's Rules of Order and Mason's Manual, we would never get business done here. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Previous question has been ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of passage of House Bill 30, the Supplemental Appropriations Act, will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 30. The ayes are 166, the nays are 8. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Recognizing February 14, 2019 is New Americans Day at the State Capitol, commending head coach Adam Clack, 2018 USA Today Coach of the Year for Georgia. Commending and recognizing Youth Leadership Green. Commending Kathy A. Latham, the Georgia Council on Economic Education 2019 and Georgia Economics Teacher of the Year. Commending and congratulating Peyton McGowan Odom. Commending the Emergency Management Association of Georgia, recognizing February 20th, 2019 as Emergency Management Association Day at the State Capitol. Commending and saluting the 125th graduating class of Gainesville High School. Recognizing and commending Coach David Mathern upon the grand occasion of his retirement. Commending and congratulating Peyton Howard Kays. Commending and congratulating Alec T. Miller. Commending and congratulating Elijah Gabriel Moore. Commending and congratulating Alexander Ulysses Harkness. Commending and congratulating Michael Kane. Recognizing and commending Coach Thomas T. Farron. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. We're going to be doing page photographs immediately upon adjournment. If you have signed up for an announcement, there may actually be members that wish to hear the announcement, so I'm going to ask those of you, if you want to hear the announcements, be seated. It'll just go quicker. If you signed up for an announcement, be at the front of the chamber and be ready to go. And while that's happening, we will have 2 birthdays before we get back on Monday. On Saturday, February 9, it will be the birthday of Chairman Trey Rhodes. Chairman Rhodes. Sunday, February 10, Chairman Kevin Tanner will celebrate a birthday. Chairman Tanner. Chair recognizes Chairman Randy Nix for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Each of you should have received earlier in the session a copy of our commitment to workplace free of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. And as part of this, you should have received a receipt to sign to say that you had received those and had read those. So I'm just asking to make sure you return that receipt. There are a number of people who have not returned them. We need to get those back, acknowledging the fact that you did receive that document. So please get it back. You can get it back to me, or you can get it back to the Speaker's office. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Dickerson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to remind the women of the Women's Legislative Caucus that we do need your nominations for the Servant Leadership Award for next week. Please bring that to us. And also the Department of Public Health will be there to speak to us on maternal and infant mortality. The naysayers that we are number 50, we're going to show them that we can be number 1 in the state of Georgia, because we're going to do something about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The City of Atlanta's Subcommittee on Affordable Housing will meet today at 1 p.m. in the Coverdell Office Room 605. Immediately after our full delegation meeting, all are welcome to attend if you are concerned about housing in our capital city, because it will take all of us to address this issue. I thank you and look forward to seeing you at 1 p.m. in Club 605.
Chair recognizes Representative Schofield for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Immediately upon adjournment, we will be meeting for the City of Atlanta delegation. The meeting will be in Club 606. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been asked by several individuals about, or they've expressed their interest in signing the Anti-Human Trafficking Protective Response Act. I have it with me today. I'm going to leave it here at the rostrum. If you'd like to come by and sign, the bill will be available. Thank you.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the majority leader of the House for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, February the 11th, 2019.
The majority leader has moved that this House stand adjourned until Monday, February 11 at 10 o'clock a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House is adjourned until Monday, February 11 at 10 a.m. and have a good weekend.